Hello hockey fans and welcome back to another video. Since the 21-22 NHL season began all the way back in October of last year, there have been 11 different head coaching changes within the league. Whether they were fired from their role due to poor performance, they departed from their organisation on their own accord, or their team declined to extend their contract into next season, roughly 1/3 of all NHL franchises have relieved their coach of his duties over the last 8 months. That's over one coach fired every single month of the season. While many of these vacancies have already been filled, and while most of these replacements are worthy successors to the role, none of these coaches are European. Sure, there are plenty of assistant coaches from Europe, and most of them have been former players in the league, but as it stands right now at the time of this recording, there isn't a single European that is currently serving as a head coach in the show. In fact, there have only ever been 4 European head coaches in the history of the NHL, with the most recent one serving over 2 decades ago now. 4 European coaches during the league's 105-year history doesn't sound that great, does it, folks? Now, some of you may be thinking, oh, come on, Odd Man Rush, you're not going to lecture us about representation in the NHL, are you? It's the best hockey league in the world. You hire the best person for the job, regardless of where they come from. Well, I believe there are a handful of European coaches that deserve an opportunity in the league due to their long and successful track records behind the bench. After all, the NHL has been home to plenty of European players, and there are several European general managers too. Why haven't they been given the same opportunity to take charge behind the bench? So no, I'm not trying to pander to the European crowd or suggest that NHL teams should hire people purely based on their nationality. There are some genuinely great European coaches that have earned the chance to prove their worth in the best league in the world. And you know what? In this video, I'm gonna try and plead their case. So why haven't there been any European head coaches over the last 20 years? Why are they still not receiving these opportunities in the year 2022? And who are some of the candidates that are deserving of the chance? Well, let's delve deeper into this fascinating situation and try to figure it out, shall we? So in today's video, join me as we discuss why European coaches deserve NHL opportunities. Let us begin by looking at the 4 Europeans that have previously coached in the NHL and see how their respective tenures panned out in order to determine whether their performances had any bearing on the current situation we find ourselves in today. First up, we have Emil Iversen. Born in Denmark but raised in America, Iversen became the first European-born NHL head coach all the way back in 1932, as he joined the Chicago Blackhawks for the 32-33 NHL season. Though he would share the head coaching role with Canadian Godfrey Matheson, and though his training programs were considered way ahead of their time, Iversen was unable to bring the Blackhawks any success, as Chicago posted an 8-7-6 record, finished 4th place in the American Division, and Iversen was promptly fired shortly after. Not the greatest start, of course, but hey, this was almost 100 years ago now. The game was very different back then, you know. Approximately 15 years after Iversen's tenure, along came our second European coach, Johnny Gottselig. Born in the Russian Empire during the early 1900s, Gottselig would also get his first NHL coaching gig with the Chicago Blackhawks, as he joined the team for the 1944-45 season. From there, Gottselig would end up spending parts of 4 seasons behind the Blackhawks bench, where he posted a 62, 105 and 20 record in 187 regular season games. He would lead Chicago to the postseason once during this span, but the Blackhawks would be swept in the first round by the Montreal Canadiens. Gottselig's stint as an NHL coach would eventually come to an end midway through the 47-48 season, when he was relieved of his duties after posting a 7-19-2 record during the first 28 games of the year. So once again, not exactly the best performance, but at least he lasted longer than 1 year, right guys? Roughly 52 years after Gottselig's tenure, a pair of European coaches would enter the league at the same time, with the first being Alpo Suhonen. Hailing from Finland, Suhonen spent 15 years coaching a variety of teams across the hockey world, before finally landing the head coaching job with the Chicago Blackhawks in May of 2000. The Blackhawks really were the trailblazers when it comes to hiring European head coaches in the NHL, eh folks? I mean, that's probably the only compliment that franchise has received in quite some time now, given everything that's been revealed about that organisation over the last year or so I recommend you take that compliment and run with it, Blackhawks. You're probably not going to get another one for quite some time, you know. Though he would take control of the team for the 2001 NHL season, Suhonen's tenure wouldn't last very long. After registering a 29-41-8 record, and after missing the playoffs thanks to a 4th place finish in the Central Division, Suhonen was relieved of his duties shortly after the season came to an end. Not only was the on-ice performance deemed not good enough, it is also said that Suhonen was relieved of his duties due to his undisciplined coaching style, and he faced frequent criticism for there being a, quote, country club atmosphere amongst the players. Not exactly what you want from your bench boss, of course, but considering that Chicago had been pretty mediocre before Suhonen's tenure, and they continued to be rather unimpressive for several years after his departure, perhaps he wasn't the biggest issue within that organisation, you know. And lastly, the NHL's most recent European head coach was none other than Ivan Hlinka. One of the most important figures in Czech hockey history and a legend within European hockey as a whole, Hlinka would spend roughly a decade and a half coaching various European teams before being hired by the Pittsburgh Penguins for the 2001 NHL season. From there, Hlinka would lead Pittsburgh to a 42-28-9-3 record during his debut year with the team, finish 3rd place in the Atlantic Division, and make a surprising postseason run all the way to the 2001 Eastern Conference Finals, before the Penguins were eliminated in 5 games by the New Jersey Devils. Despite producing the best season of any European coach in NHL history, Hlinka wouldn't remain in Pittsburgh for much longer. After coaching the first 4 games of the 01-02 NHL season, and having failed to win a single contest during that span, Hlinka was relieved of his duty shortly after. Interestingly, it is said that Pittsburgh Penguins star forward Mario Lemieux had publicly criticised Hlinka for not taking classes to improve his English during the summer, and the pair was said to have had, quote, a frosty relationship. So it's possible that this disconnect also contributed to Hlinka's dismissal. Considering that this coaching change didn't seem to improve Pittsburgh's fortunes, and considering that the Penguins would regress even further in the several years after Hlinka's departure, I'm not so sure that he was the problem there, you know. After all, he led your team to a surprising trip to the conference finals. What more could you ask of him during his first season behind an NHL bench? So based on our findings, I think it's fair to say that all 4 European coaches could have done better and they could have done worse during their respective tenures in the show. Sure, several of these coaches produced pretty abysmal records, and most of them barely lasted a single season in the league, but half of these coaches made it to the playoffs at least once, and Hlinka took his team on a surprising run to the Eastern Conference Finals. That's better than many other NHL coaches have produced during their careers, European or not. Given that the European NHL coaches have been just as successful as the vast majority of North American NHL coaches, why haven't more Europeans been given a shot in the show? Whilst I don't think there is one definitive answer to this question, I think there are several factors that might explain why with varying levels of validity. So let's take a look at each of them, shall we? Firstly, most NHL teams, especially championship contenders, want either a proven winner or someone with an impressive track record in the league behind their bench. And whilst you can certainly understand a team wanting to hire someone with a certain level of success in that certain league, if European coaches aren't given opportunities in the NHL, then they don't get the chance to build up a track record of their own or prove whether or not they are a winner too, which only exacerbates the problem further. Secondly, many NHL teams probably want a coach that is either fluent or very experienced in speaking the English language, as it's easier for them to communicate with management, players, and the media. Kind of like why the Montreal Canadiens prefer to hire a coach that can speak both English and French because there's a huge French-speaking population there. Now, I can definitely see some merit in this argument, as I can only imagine just how difficult things would be if your coach couldn't adequately communicate with the rest of the organisation, but there are plenty of European players who have limited English skills, and teams find a way to work around that, be it through a translator or fellow countrymen helping them out. So why can't the same be done for a head coach too? That said, a head coach needs to communicate with far more people than a player does on a daily basis, so this comparison probably isn't the best, but it's certainly food for thought, right? Next, the differing styles of play between North America and Europe have made teams reluctant to hire a European coach and instead stick with the system that they know best. After all, North American hockey has typically relied on size and strength to assert dominance up and down the ice, whereas the European style has relied more on speed and skill to dazzle their way through the opposition. However, I would argue that the NHL shift towards greater utilising its speed and skill means that there is no longer such a disparity between the two different playing styles. Are there still some clear differences? Absolutely. But if you ask me, the two styles have never been more similar, so hiring a European coach might not be as risky as it was several decades ago. Penultimately, there seems to be a perception out there that North American coaches straight up are just better than their European counterparts. After all, there have been plenty of coaches from the minor leagues, the major junior level, or even college that have been given NHL opportunities despite their clear lack of expertise at the pro level. Now, while I understand that these coaches have been developed in the North American system and they are familiar with the style that their new team wants, are you telling me that a North American who has coached a group of teenagers and young adults to a Memorial Cup or an NCAA title is more qualified to coach in the NHL than a European who has led a team of professional hockey players to a domestic league championship, a world championship, or even an Olympic medal? It sounds a little ridiculous when you think about it that way, doesn't it? And finally, perhaps the biggest reason why European coaches haven't been given a fair shake is because they lack a strong relationship with NHL management circles, or a similar network of contacts to their North American counterparts. Let's not forget that there are only 32 head coaching jobs up for offer in the NHL, and the league's management is known for being quite the boys' club. So unless you have a proven track record in a league that they actually care about, you have a strong relationship with an NHL GM, or you come highly recommended by many other members of the group, your chances of joining this club are unlikely at best and downright impossible at worst. Whilst you could certainly argue that plenty of North American coaches also share this reality too, given that European coaches are seen as outsiders compared to a good old Canadian boy, you can't deny that Europeans face a much tougher task, right? So now that we have explored the European coaches of the past and the possible reasons why there haven't been any since, who are the potential candidates of the future? Well, there are 4 different names that have been repeatedly recommended by numerous media outlets, thanks to their long and successful track records, both in Europe and on the international stage too. First up, we have the newest coach of the 4, Marco Sturm. The 43-year-old German and veteran of nearly 1,000 NHL games as a player, spent 4 years as both the general manager and the head coach of the German national program, where he led their under-20 team to a silver and bronze medal finish at the 2017 and 2018 World Junior Championships respectively. Not only that, Sturm also coached the German men's team to a silver medal at the 2018 Winter Olympics. Considering that Germany were the 8th ranked nation in the world at the time, and considering that they had to defeat Switzerland, Sweden and Canada before finally falling in the gold medal game, Sturm did one hell of a job behind the bench. Since then, Sturm has returned to the NHL, where he currently serves as an assistant coach of the Los Angeles Kings, a role he has held since the 2018-19 season. Sure, Sturm is one of many European assistant coaches that are currently employed in the NHL, and many of them are equally deserving of consideration for a head coaching job, but Sturm seems to be the frontrunner from this group due to his time with the German national program, so I figured I would choose him to be their representative in this video. He's certainly one of the more successful of them, that's for sure. Next we have Roger Rönnberg. The 50-year-old Swede has produced a 20-year coaching career exclusively in his homeland, and has taken home his fair share of awards in the process too. Not only has he won 2 Swedish Hockey League championships and 4 Champions Hockey League titles as the best team in Europe, Rönnberg has won both a gold and silver medal at the World Juniors as the head coach of Sweden's under-20 team, while also winning a silver and 2 bronze medals at the World Championships as an assistant coach of the Sweden's men's team. Not bad for a guy who played just 2 pro games during his career, eh folks? According to Elite Prospects, Rönnberg shall be returning to Gothenburg for the upcoming 22-23 SHL season, as he is once again the head coach of Frölunda HC, a role he has held since the 2013-14 season, nearly a decade prior. So whilst he isn't taking his talents anywhere else anytime soon, he certainly deserves some serious consideration for the 23-24 season if you ask me. Penultimately, we have Jukka Jalonen. The 59-year-old Finn has been coaching for the last 33 years and has gotten his hands on a treasure trove of awards during this span. Thanks to his lengthy stints in the Finnish Liga, the KHL and with the Finnish national team, Jalonen won a Liga championship in 2006, earned a Liga bronze medal as the third place team on 4 separate occasions, and made 3 different trips to the KHL All-Star game too. Not only that, Jalonen has won 4 medals at the World Championships, including 2 gold, 1 silver and 1 bronze, a gold medal at the 2016 World Juniors, and a bronze medal at the 2010 Olympics, as well as a gold medal during the recent 2022 Winter Olympic Games. Oh, and he's also been named Finnish Coach of the Year on 2 separate occasions, and was inducted into the Finnish Hockey Hall of Fame back in 2012, just in case his previous accolades weren't impressive enough for you, you know. At the time of this recording, Jalonen is currently serving as the head coach of the Finnish men's national team during the 2022 IIHF World Championships, a role which he previously held between 2008 and 2012, and which he is currently in the 4th year of his 2nd term. Given that he just led Finland to their first ever Olympic gold medal, and given that he has accumulated his fair share of accolades during his Hall of Fame coaching career, the fact that he has garnered so little interest from the NHL is downright criminal. I mean, the guy has won pretty much every single award that he possibly could at every level he has coached at over the last 3 decades. What more can you ask of him? And finally, perhaps the most popular name that's mentioned when discussing the next European NHL head coach, we have Rickard Grönborg. The 53-year-old Swede has just concluded his 24th year of coaching and has won so many awards during this span. After spending the first decade of his coaching career with a variety of teams in North America, and having also scouted for his national team for several years during that span, Grönborg would begin coaching for the Swedish national program and has gone on to win 8 medals at the World Junior Championships, including 1 gold, 6 silver and 1 bronze, 7 medals at the World Championships, including 3 gold, 2 silver and 3 bronze, as well as a silver medal at the 2014 Winter Olympics too. I don't know if you guys were keeping track, but that's quite a lot of medals. Over the last 3 seasons, Grönborg has served as the head coach of the Swiss League Zurich Lions, where he came just 1 win from clinching the 2022 NLA Championship. Sure, his season may have come to a heartbreaking finish, but I'm sure that his 16 medals helped to ease the pain just a little bit, you know. Remind me, why hasn't Grönborg been given an NHL coaching gig again? I mean, he's certainly been looking for one based on previous interviews, and he's definitely overqualified for the position. So come on, NHL, there must be one team that would be willing to give him a chance. Come on, guys, it's the right thing to do, you know. Now, it's certainly possible that several of these coaches have shown little interest in moving to the NHL, and that's why they haven't been hired. And it's still highly unlikely that any of these candidates will make the move across the pond anytime soon. But here's hoping that an NHL franchise decides to take a chance on one of these hopefuls sooner rather than later, and finally gives them the opportunity to prove whether or not they can cut it in the best league in the world. Who knows? Perhaps they might exceed even the wildest of expectations and turn out far better than anyone could have predicted. I guess we'll never know until you give one of them a chance, right? And that was a look at why European coaches deserve NHL opportunities. What do you guys think about the current coaching situation in the league? Do you think that a European coach should be given the chance to prove himself? Or do you think that the league has stuck with North American coaches for a reason? Let me know in the comments below, I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching, guys, I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye! A big thank you to Clayton Hallam, Drew Fawcett, Houston NG, Raquel, and Worthless Pieces for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.